addiction to either substance or behaviour, or both in my case. My substance of addiction, alcohol, so an alcoholic in recovery one day at a time, and behaviour, addicted to people, places, things, work, relationships, materialism, you name it, a marketing person's dream, always wanting to fill some gap inside me, to make me happy, to feel loved, to feel able to love back and be useful, and also unhappily striving for perfection rather than making gentle progress. So the difference these days really is about making progress as life offers opportunities, making progress as life offers opportunities, rather than wanting it a certain way so that I may feel right about life. So it's not about right or wrong in recovery, it's about making progress to choices which are open to us. And the biggest choice, always for me, is to live sober just for today. So what has helped me get to a point where sober is my preference rather than something I tried to achieve? Well, I didn't do it on my own, certainly not a self-help area or arena when it comes to addiction, because addiction is founded on self-will. Self-will turned to self-obsession, and then self-will run riot, where there is no stopping and we can't stop. So self-will didn't really do it for me. It was very good at being determined and ambitious, but it was against maybe a set of criteria which were impossible. That was to be perfect at everything. And being just a simple human being, I realise now, the idea of perfect, or getting to perfect, is not the key. So acceptance of what is seems more appropriate to making progress. And the other part of self-will is, if we are completely self-obsessed and then running riot, we are in control of nothing. We are powerless over that particular attitude and behaviour. We are single-minded of purpose, and in some instances that can be a good thing, but it doesn't give balance in life, and life is about the whole experience of what can be. So as self-will narrows our choices, then we are not open to the world. So part of the process of recovery for me has been letting go and letting choices develop based on what is real. So I couldn't do it on my own, and for 35 years drink was my best friend. Alcohol helped me survive, cope. And these days it's not necessarily about just surviving and coping, it's about living and understanding. Yeah, I got a moment of clarity or two, and I just had an interruption in a food delivery, so I should be alright for a few days. So, recovery. And what made it possible? Well, as I say, couldn't do it on my own. I found a fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous. Never speak for it, never can, never will, never want to, but I can share about how it's helped me find recovery possible, to change my attitude and behaviour on a daily basis, so that life can be possible to good choices. So I share about AA extensively and the literature because it helps me, and the people in the fellowship of AA, fellows, are unique, authentic human beings with experience, strength and hope to share, and I can learn every single day from what people say and then how I live my life. So I share the AA statement of intent here and literature to illustrate how it's helping me. So first, the statement of intent about AA, and it reads like this. It's called the AA Preamble, shared at every meeting. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And it's as simple as that. Help others and a desire to stop drinking and stay stopped. And what helps me, and especially as I've not been able to get to meetings regularly due to fractures in my foot, is the daily reflections, which is 1 page a day, a daily reflection, 1 page a day, all about the 12 steps and 12 traditions of AA. 12 steps to change our attitude and behaviour. So, January, all about being powerless over alcohol and life being unmanageable. February, all about being restored to sanity on a daily basis. March, all about letting go and letting good happen, letting the good choices in, rather than being obsessed about, I am determined, self-will will power me through this. And then April, all about the fearless moral inventory and what it means, where we move from living in our history to living in the day, and the possibilities being open again to life working and life being able to be lived as it is. So for today, April 22nd, it says new soil, new roots, all about growth, and you know, the sun is shining here in London. That's a miracle in itself. Here it says new soil, new roots. Moments of perception can build into a lifetime of spiritual serenity, as I have excellent reason to know. Roots of reality. This is it, roots of reality. Supplanting the neurotic underbrush will hold fast despite the high winds of forces which would destroy us, or which we would use to destroy ourselves. That is going back into self-obsession and why isn't it my way? So living in reality, always the key for me. I came to AA, green, a seedling, quivering with exposed taproots. It was for survival, but it was also the beginning. I stretched, developed, twisted, but with the help of others, my spirit eventually burst up from the roots. I was free from alcohol. I acted, withered, went inside, prayed, acted again, understood anew as one moment of perception struck. Up from my roots, the spirit arms lengthened into strong green shoots, high-springing servants, stepping skyward. Here on earth, God unconditionally continues the legacy of high love. My AA life put me on a new, different footing. My roots grasped a new soil. It comes from AA's big book, page 12. And when I read that, I mean, it can sound a bit flowery, but when you actually transfer it into flowery, yeah, new shoots. When you translate it into maybe just common language, which is what is spiritual, and it talks there about reality. Spiritual for me is reality, and I have to be careful here because we leave our politics and religion at the door of AA when we walk in, although sometimes we don't, and we can be accused of trying to impose our views on others. So one of the things that I always say is we are unique, authentic human beings, and what we believe is what we come to understand is right for us. So, you know, there is always talk of higher power and influences in our lives. So what's the biggest influence in my life and the higher power is reality. And the question of God, you know, for many years I had no clue what God could be in my life. So I came to understand, for me, truth, love and wisdom of others. And that's the best I can do when I look to understanding how God works. God is a word used by 6.5 billion people, and it means 6.5 billion different things, or is defined differently by every human being. So I do not want to interfere at all in that particular arena. But the Serenity Prayer, which I share at the end of my videos, hopefully if I've got time, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is simply and always for me, just for today. And that's recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour, outlandish really, trying to be perfect to everybody, do everything that everybody liked, and so I would hope they would like me. I think it's called people pleasing, And who doesn't do it to a large extent? Well, maybe only people who are very, 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 very selfish and don't have any idea of their impact on others. And what I've learned over the last few years, that sobriety is the foundation of living for me. And sobriety helps me find an open, honest approach to living, to find the truth of now. And the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has been absolutely integral to my continued sobriety. So I share here about how AA impacts on my life. I don't speak for AA, never can, never will, and it's not about making money either. It's just about sharing my message of how life is going, and the fact that I'm still here, still alive, and the reason why is because of fellowship, as well as family, community, society, medical professionals. You know, when we get into addiction, it's the very devil, because we just don't get out of it on our own, or if we do get out of it on our own, we are running on iron will and often trying to control everything, so we remain prisoners of our own making. So what does fellowship do for me? Well, it frees me to make choices and to be a part of, to be included in society and family and community and a fellowship, so that I can understand how to relate to other people in my life and do something useful. That is, be a part of and be understanding and considerate. So, fellowship, what does it mean? And there are 600 or 700 meetings here in London every week, and as somebody said in the meeting last night, you know, we are very lucky in London to have so many meetings, and really the only reason is that there's a high concentration of recovering alcoholics on a daily basis in the London area, and we get many visitors from abroad and from different parts of the country. So when we go to a meeting, this preamble is shared, and it probably was heard for the first time by 1 or 2 people in the meeting last night, because they were absolutely brand new and very confused, or maybe just a few days in. So the preamble goes like this for every meeting, and that's why I do it on these videos. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And some of the things I've been saying this week, or in the last few days, are connected with the fact that the fellowship is only there to keep us sober. It cannot solve our material, financial, emotional woes beyond allowing us to be sober. So we can have maybe false dawns and false hopes sometimes that AA will solve everything. It only solves one thing: how to be sober, how to be open and honest to what is going on in our lives. And then we still have to do everything that everybody else does. That is to make sense of what we can do and what we can't do, and how to be included. And all these ways of looking at the world are quite different to when we're stuck in the malady of drink, where we are excluding, isolating, and on a downward spiral which we can't get out of. Not satisfactorily on our own. And you know, living on self-will, it does run riot, and that's what happened to me in addiction. It's not only self-will run riot, there is no will, and we are powerless over the malady of addiction. And it's so it makes us fear everything, mostly ourselves and our inability to cope. And you know, the ability to cope was said to be the spiritual connection by an archbishop. So when he was asked, you know, what is spiritual, he just simply said it's the ability to cope with now, to see reality. And in reality and nature and providence and all those things, we get a better understanding of how we can make use of one day, this one. So whoever got to the point where they said that AA was just for one day, and the person sharing last night was very emphatic. We put together one-day sobers and make longer-term sobriety happen. But we're all in the same place when we wake up in the morning. We still have to ask ourselves, how are we feeling, why, and what can we do? And if we're feeling okay, make the best of, and if we're not okay, acknowledge it and see what we can do to improve it. And the best way to improve it often is to be in the company of others, not just fellowship, but family, and community and work. And you know what? A lot of people around here are being credit crunched as well, so they've lost everything. So life is very difficult at the moment, and it's budget day in the UK. We'll see what happens next. Daily readings from the fellowship. This book, Daily Reflections, gives us a daily page, and April is all about the 4th step. That's the fearless moral inventory, to see how we're doing, where things were good and where things were bad, our assets and liabilities. And it goes on to step 5 next month in May, which is about sharing it with another human being and a power greater than ourselves. But for step 4, April 22nd, it says, new soil, new roots. Moments of perception can build into a lifetime of spiritual serenity, as I have excellent reason to know. Roots of reality, supplanting the neurotic underbrush, will hold fast despite the high winds of forces which would destroy us, or which we would use to destroy ourselves. That comes from As Bill Sees It, page 173. We'll get to that one later in the As Bill Sees It book. I came to the AA program green, a seedling quivering with exposed taproots. It was for survival, but it was also a beginning. I stretched, developed, twisted, but with the help of others, my spirit eventually burst up from the roots. I was free. I acted, withered, went inside, prayed, acted again, understood anew. As one moment of perception struck, upon my roots, spirit arms lengthened into strong green shoots, high springing servants stepping skyward. Here on earth, God unconditionally continues the legacy of higher love. My AA life put me on a different footing. My roots grasped a new soil. That also comes from AA's big book, page 12. And you know, it can sound a bit flowery and not in touch with reality. But the whole program is really about getting in touch with reality. And you know, the economists have been talking about the green shoots of recovery. Well, I'm maybe a bit enthusiastic, and the same applies to people in sobriety. We sometimes think we've got the green roots of spiritual, but in fact it can be a false dawn, because we go 2 steps backward when we get a bit of a setback. And you know, the gift of getting setbacks in the day is they're no bigger than the day. So if we let go our history and start living in the moment, you know, don't lose the wisdom of the years, but actually understand that wisdom can be improved by how we react and respond to what is going on around us today. And as Bill sees it, this book, you can read as many pages a day as helps you get to where you need to get to. And you know, serenity is not just about being joyful, happy and free. It's actually accepting the crap as well. Not flowery language, but there you go. But page 83, we cannot live alone. All of AA's 12 steps ask us to go contrary to our natural desires. They deflate our egos. When it comes to ego deflation, few steps are harder to take than the 5th. Scarcely any step is more necessary to long-time sobriety and peace of mind. AA experience has taught us we cannot live alone with our pressing problems and the character defects which cause or aggravate them. And that's fear, brave facing and ego for me. If step 4 has revealed, this is the fearless moral inventory, in stark relief those experiences we'd rather not remember, and then the need to quit living by ourselves with those tormenting ghosts of yesterday gets more urgent than ever. We have to talk to somebody about them, and the essence of step 5 is sharing it with another human being. We cannot wholly rely on friends to solve all our difficulties. A good advisor will never do all our thinking for us. He knows that each final choice must be ours. He will therefore help to eliminate fear, expediency and self-deception, so enabling us to make choices which are loving, wise and honest. And you know, God works through people, so I understand. And you know, for me, as Gandhi said, God is truth, God is love. But it's your understanding of God which always counts. And sometimes I'm an atheist, sometimes an agnostic, and sometimes a true believer. Sometimes we just live with what we understand just now. So when I say the serenity prayer, it's to the good and bad of life as it is. It goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, simply and honestly and openly, in this one day we have before us. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And yes, good morning. And it looks like Tuesday morning here is going to be fairly bright here in London, UK. And the last 24 hours have been extraordinarily busy helping and supporting other people and trying to make my computer do what I would like it to do at the right speed at the right time. And of course life ain't like that, and sometimes we want things better than they are and we don't have the capacity, and in this case my computer, whilst a wonderful tool, doesn't have some of the capacities I wish it had. So frustration some of the time, and also good time really helping others, as I say. And you know, what is the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous all about? It's got one primary reason for its existence, and that's to help people find sobriety, or have a desire to find sobriety. And the old adage that you can lead a horse to water but you can't make it drink sort of resonates in my head a little bit, because there's lots of people who would like to give up drinking, have a fervent wish to, they feel, underlying all the things that are going on, but cannot, for whatever reason, stop. And the normal reason that they cannot stop is that they are unaware of what alcoholism is. It's a disease, and it stops us being in control. And no amount of self-will or willpower generally stops people drinking for any long period of time without them doing some sort of therapeutic process or having some sort of intervention in their lives which makes it okay to be okay without drink. And I've been looking at this book, Practicing the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I've just been giving you snippets. And here's a bit on fear again. Fear seems to have many causes: fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being hurt, and so on. But ultimately, all fear is the ego's fear of death, or of annihilation. To the ego, death is always just around the corner. In this mind-identified state, fear of death affects every aspect of your life. And, you know, when it says fear of death, sometimes it's worse. And in the condition of being an alcoholic, it's more about fear of life more than anything, fear of living through hard times where nothing seems to go right, and we're never quite secure in our own person and in our own mind and how we see things. So fear of life actually made me able to keep on drinking to obliterate my disastrous consequences of drinking. So it's a loop we can't get out of, and to break it we need some sort of intervention. And if we're lucky, family catches before we fall too far. If we're unlucky, nothing that family can save us from this disease, because we can't save ourselves. So if we're unable to stop it ourselves, how on earth can somebody from the outside looking in impose some sort of method or intervention? So it's almost like we do have to see rock bottom in our drinking in order to find that there is no further downward slope. But rest assured, if you think you've got to rock bottom now, you can always find that there'll be another rock bottom somewhere in life which is going to affect you just as badly. And the gift of the program, or the fellowship of AA, is that we learn to live life and live it in small manageable chunks. And those small manageable chunks are called days at a time. So if we can get into the day at a time thing, one day only, to try and make life work, we're onto a better framework of life. And last night I went to the Boltons, which is one of my favourite meetings. And sometimes it's got lots of people and sometimes not very many. But last night was step 8, about making amends, or making a list of people we need to make amends to in sobriety, and be willing to make them. So this step is in 2 parts: make the list and be willing. So the list is comprising of wrongs or hurts done to other people and also to ourselves. And I heard a general share, if you like, that somehow it can be ego which puts our own name on the list of amends to be made. So I guess I had to think I struggle with this, because if I have ego, which says I ought to be on the list of people to make amends to, or in confidence and in humility I say I need to make amends to myself for being human, because if I am human then I can forgive myself, and if I can forgive myself I can start to work on how I've hurt other people and be willing to make amends to them too. So it's a bit of a difficult one, because we need to sort out our step 6 and step 7. Step 6 is all about our problems, where we have still got fear, ego, anxiety, putting on a brave face, and wondering what might happen to us, the imagination of fear. And step 7 is about courage, faith and confidence, and humility, to actually say, well, listen to yourself and understand that you have got a disease and you have got to do something about it. And in the process of doing something about it, living amends is a day at a time to keep sober, so we may be useful again to ourselves and society and to our families and friends and people in fellowship. So I don't rule myself out from the amends process, and to be able to forgive myself for having got a disease and to accept as such means that I don't have the ego which says I don't put myself there, because I think that is false pride. So it's not easy being an alcoholic in recovery, because we have lots of things which can trip us up, and the only way we get around this is to have other inputs, like going to meetings, have a sponsor, read the books, make our own minds up, because we do need to make our own minds up about these things. And daily reflections for today from this book is AA's 12 months or 12 steps. Step 4, April. All about making this fear less moral inventory. Says here for April 22nd, new soil, new boots. Moments of perception can build into a lifetime of spiritual serenity, as I have excellent reasons to know. Roots of reality, supplanting the neurotic underbrush, will hold fast despite the high winds of forces which would destroy us, or which we would use to destroy ourselves. As Bill sees it, page 173, and it goes on to say, I came to AA green, a seedling quivering with exposed taproots. It was for survival, but it was a beginning. I stretched, developed, twisted, but with the help of others, my spirit eventually burst up from the roots. I was free. I acted, withered, went inside, prayed, acted again, understood anew, as one moment of perception struck. Up from my roots, spirit arms lengthened into strong green shoots, high-springing servants stepping forwards, stepping skyward. Here on earth, God unconditionally continues the legacy of higher love. My AA life put me on a different footing. My roots grasped a new soil. And, in the big picture, God, good conscience, God being truth and love, and whatever it is, the understanding that we are not God, really, and sort of crushing that ego which says fear of life, fear of death, and the imagination which goes with it, to get to a place of courage, faith and confidence to make the day work. All those things we have to try and do on a daily basis, and it's just as it may be. Last night I didn't wholeheartedly agree with everything that was being said, and why should I? Because I don't need to have ideas imposed on me by others. And similarly, if anything here is not to your liking, you discard it, I hope. And we don't need to defend something and be right about it. We need to find something which works and work with it. So whatever works for you is most important, and whatever works for me is my path. Anyway, more a bit later.